Okay. Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Abu Saleh, an assistant professor of English at Raja Pere Mohan College under University of Calcutta. Today we will be discussing about John Milton, especially his important works under the paper English Literature 1590 to 1798. This module has been prepared by Antralina Basu. She is a research scholar at the University of Hyderabad. So in this module, we will be discussing about John Milton and his important works, his poems and other writings. This module outlines the important literary works of John Milton, and it showcases how his writings contributed in the contemporary society of England. It delves into the themes predominant in his writings. Also, this module encapsulates his style of writing, especially his prose and poetry. John Milton was born on 9 December 1608 and he died on 8 November 1674. Milton is regarded as one of the significant figures in English literature since his days of writing. Milton is a prolific writer. He has composed numerous poems, pamphlets, theopolitical as well as polemic writings. Milton's work showcases a strong reverence for the ideas of freedom and forbiddance, therefore alluring readers, critics, academics since times immemorial. So we are discussing about John Milton and how he is an important literary person in history of English literature. So now let us have a look at the prose writings of John Milton. We'll see an outline of John Milton's prose writings. Primarily, his writings are polemical and theopolitical. His writings dealt with the political and social issues in England during his times. His style is straightforward and studied with lengthy and complex sentences. Generally, it says that Milton lacks humor, hence failed to appeal a wide range of readers. His prose work served to enlighten us on the social and economical and political issues of the Puritan age on which Milton was writing. In his prose writings, we find 5 anti-prelatic essays. One of them is of Reformation, touching church discipline in England, which came in 1641. This work traces the changes in the Church of England since the inception under Henry VIII, and it criticizes the hierarchical system in the government. The second work is of prelatical episcopacy, which came in 1641. It is the shortest religious tract by Milton. It is also notable for its scathing attack on Archbishop James Ussher's The Judgment of Doctors Reynolds touching the original of Episcopacy, which also came in 1641. The next one is Animadversions, which also came in 1641. It tracts that the response to the works of Bishop Joseph Hall and attacks the corruption in the churches. The fourth one is The Reasons for Church Government, which came in 1642. This work showcases Milton's approval of the Protestant approach to the Church of England. The last one in this series is An Apology Against Pamphlet, which came in 1642. It is also called the Apology for Smectipnus. It is written as a response to Bishop Hall, a modest confutation of the Animadversions. So after discussing his prelatic essays, anti-prelatic essays, now we'll see his prose work, especially on divorce. The 4 tracts written on divorce by Milton are The Doctrine and Discipline of Divorce, which came in 1643, The Judgment of Martin Bucer, which came in 1645, Tetrachrodon, which came in 1645, and Cholesterol, which came in 1645. So we are discussing Milton's essays on diverse. Now, after then, we'll see other prose works of John Milton. The important essay, Oratio pro Arte, which came in 1632, is Milton's last article written at Cambridge. It elaborates on the contentment derived from learning. The work stresses on the importance of friendship between compatible minds and academic circles. The next one is Areopagitica, which came in 1644. Areopagitica is a polemic tract where Milton argues against the censorship. It urges the Parliament to revoke the licensing order of 1643. So we are discussing the prose works of Milton, and the next one is Of Education, which came in 1644. This one was written in the form of a letter on the request of Samuel Hartlib. It portrays his opinion concerning the best and noblest way of education. The next one is Iconoclastes, which came in 1649. Iconoclastes is a polemic one consisting monarchical systems. It is written to refute Icon Basilic's spiritual autobiography credited to the executed of King Charles I. This work also portrays the hypocritical nature of the monarchy. The next one is History of Britain, which came in 1670. This is an unfinished prose work by John Milton on the history of England. Now, after discussing the prose work of John Milton, let us see Milton poetry. Milton's early poetic compositions were experimental, inspired by the essence of the Greek drama and Renaissance. The Puritan strain in his poetic works became more dominant with time. The Miltonic verses or Miltonic blank verse was a poetic structure popularized by Milton and inspired later poets like Pope and Keats. Poetic works abundant with allusions and figure of speech is very much prevalent in Milton works. His sentence construction is unusually dramatic. He also employs a lofty and elevated tone in the epic poems. So we are discussing the poetic works of John Milton, and let us see his poems. One of his earliest poems was On the Morning of Christ's Nativity, which came in 1629. The next one came in 1630, is called On Shakespeare. The next one is Il Allegro and Il Penseroso, which came in 1632. In 1634 came Comus. Lycidas came in 1638. After then, there are 3 sonnets by Milton. Further, the epic Paradise Lost came in 1658, and Paradise Regained came in 1671, and at the end, Samson Agonistes, it came in 1671. Now, let us discuss On the Morning of Christ's Nativity, which came in 1629. The poem was composed during his study in Cambridge. It revolves around the significance of the incarnation of Christ. The poem showcases the poet's imagination and his poetic concern. The poem also serves as a precursor to Paradise Lost. After discussing On the Morning of Christ's Nativity, now we'll discuss on Shakespeare, which was published in 1630. It was composed of 16 lines. Initially, this poem was titled An Epitaph on the Admirable Dramatic Poet W. Shakespeare. Initially, this poem was titled as An Epitaph on the Admirable Dramatic Poet W. Shakespeare. The poem revolves around the idea that no momentum was needed to pay tribute to Shakespeare, as he himself had created an immoral memorial for himself through his literary works. This poem is written in iambic pentameter and divided into heroic couplets. So after one Shakespeare, we will discuss Il Allegro and Il Penseroso, which were published in 1632. These are called companion poems that complement each other. These explore contrasting states of human psyche. El Allegro talks about the importance of being joyful and the necessity of celebrating on a spring day. On the other side, Il Penseroso talks of Milton condemns merriment and embraces melancholy. Now let us discuss about Comus, which came in 1634. Comus was subtitled A Masque Presented at Ludlow Castle, 1634. It showcases Milton's Puritan sensibilities. Comus is Milton's first dramatic representation of the contention between good and evil. Comus revolves around virtuous lady who restrains from all sensual temptation. So we are discussing Comus. Next, let us discuss Lycidas. Lycidas is a pastoral elegy by John Milton. Lycidas was written for a friend, Edward King, who had drowned during traveling to Ireland. This poem upholds Milton's own suffering on the realization that death can cripple all human achievements and aspirations. After discussing various poems of Milton, let us discuss Milton's sonnets. Milton was the only notable sonneteer in the post-Elizabethan era. Milton revived and broadened the style of sonnet writing in English. He has written 23 sonnets in altogether. Sonnets on both personal and political, social events were written by John Milton. Milton's sonnets written in the latter part of life deal with personal emotions and are more intimate in their expressions. So we are discussing sonnets of John Milton. Milton modified the form of the Italian pattern or the Petrarchan sonnet like Petrarch's Renaissance followers, Bembo, Delia Casa, etc. He experimented by allowing the octave to run into the sestes unlike Petrarchan sonnets, which reads through a different way. Instead of being divided into paragraphs, Milton's sonnet became a verse moving through a sound pattern, 4 division rhymes. The Milton sonnet have intricate sentence structure. So we are discussing John Milton sonnets, we see how it is different from Petrarchan and other earlier English sonnets. Now let us move and see a sonnet of John Milton that is on his being arrival at the age of 23, which was published in 1632. This sonnet was written immediately after Milton's graduation from Cambridge. This is a Petrarchan sonnet written in iambic pentameter. This sonnet revolves around Milton's speculation on the passage of time and his faith in the will of the Almighty. His religious bent towards Calvinism can be perceived through this sonnet. So after discussing that sonnet, we will discuss on His Blindness, which came in 1655. This is also a Petrarchan sonnet and it is written in iambic pentameter. This is regarded as one of the most touching sonnets in English literature. Written at the time when Milton was turning blind and was emotionally broken, not knowing how to be service to God as he was becoming blind. The poem, true to the Puritan spirit, upholds the importance of submitting to the will of the Almighty. They also serve who only stand and wait. We are discussing John Milton's sonnet on his blindness, and this is also important because personally Milton was also getting blind at that time, and how he was thinking about his submission to God. Now let us discuss some of the major and prominent work of John Milton, and one of them is obviously Paradise Lost. Milton started writing Paradise Lost in 1658, and during that time Milton was completely blind. He aspired to assert the eternal providence and justify the ways to God to men, which is taken from Paradise Lost. And Paradise Lost was written as an epic poem in the form of a blank verse. We are discussing Paradise Lost of John Milton. If we see the themes of Paradise Lost, we can see it evokes the biblical narrative of the fall of man, which showcases how Adam and Eve disobeyed their father by falling prey to the temptation of Satan, and how they were expelled from the Garden of Eden or the paradise. Primary object of Paradise Lost was to showcase the consequences of man's first disobedience and uphold the importance of submitting to the will and grace of God. The theme of the Paradise Lost is the eternal theme of man's falling from paradise. Paradise Lost also captures the biblical story of how Satan or Lucifer was defeated and banished from the hell or Tartarus. Paradise Lost upholds the ethos of the Puritan age accurately. Paradise Lost has been referred to as the dream of a Puritan fallen asleep over his Bible. Now let us discuss Paradise Lost book-wise. So first we'll discuss book 1, then we'll go to book 2. So in book 1 we see it begins with the lake of fire in hell, where Lucifer and his rebel angels have fallen from heaven. Then Lucifer seeks to take revenge on God by poisoning the man of God's beloved creation, mankind. In book 2, it crosses the hell gate. Lucifer saw the great gulf between the heaven and hell, and after a tedious journey through chaos, he reached the periphery of God's newly created material world and later the Garden of Paradise. So in Paradise book 1 and book 2, we see how the development of Satan, his fall from the garden, and then again his war against the God. Then if we move to book 3, we'll see that God foretells his son Jesus that Lucifer would be able to pervert mankind. However, God is willing to pardon the sins of human race if someone is willing to take the burden of man's sins. The Son of God, which Christ readily offered to die for the sins of human race. In book 4, we find Satan entering paradise, takes the guise of a vulture and visits Eve in her dream and tempts her to disobey God. Uriel warns Gabriel about the evil spirit that had entered in the garden. After then, in book 5, we see Eve is haunted by the disturbing dream. The archangel Raphael warns Adam about the presence of an evil spirit who had come to taint mankind. In book 6, we find Raphael elaborates to Adam on the war that Lucifer lodged against his very own creator. Also narrates how Lucifer was defeated and banished to hell. In the book 7, we find Raphael goes to enlighten Adam about the creation of the material world. In book 8, we find that Adam's speculation about his creator and God. Also Adam's acknowledgement to grace the Almighty. Further, Raphael warns Adam again and takes his leave. Then we come to Paradise Lost, book 9. Here the serpent finally persuades Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. On seeing that Eve had already eaten the fruit, Adam decided to embrace the fate of his beloved. They immediately fall from the grace of Almighty, and the first disobedience of mankind was made. We are discussing Paradise Lost book-wise, and now we'll see book 10. In book 10, we see the sin of mankind is known in heaven and the Son of God is sent to earth. Adam repents his action. Further, Adam urges Eve to beg for forgiveness from God. Lucifer returns to hell and celebrates. And then the fallen angels are turned into spineless serpents by God. Then we'll see Paradise Lost book 11 and book 12. In book 11, we find the Son of God pleads forgiveness on behalf of Adam and Eve. God declares that they must leave heaven. In book 12, Michael describes how Son of God would be born and how he would die for the sins of human race. Further, he also informs Adam about condition of the churches in earth until the second coming of Christ. Finally, the epic ends with Adam and Eve tearfully leaving paradise and wandering off into a new world. So we are discussing Paradise Lost, and we find how Adam and Eve were thrown out of the paradise and how Satan played the role in this, and also how the Son of God would be taking care of them in future courses. Now let us discuss about Paradise Regained, which came in 1671. Paradise Regained upholds Satan's aspiration to tame Jesus Christ into a disobeying God. The theme is radical, considering the puritanical temperament of the time. This sequel hardly surpassed the glory of Paradise Lost, as it lacked much of the dramatic or ornate style of the former. So we have seen that Paradise Regained is not so famous in terms of popularity as like Paradise Lost. Now let us discuss another work by John Milton, which is Samson Agonistes. This also came in 1671. Samson Agonistes is a notable tragic closet drama or verse drama written by John Milton. It was published along with the epic poem Paradise Regained in the same year 1671. The dramatic poem describes the story of Samson, the failed hero of Israel after he had surrendered to Delilah and had been imprisoned for a captive of the Philistines. The style lacks ornate nature, which also typical of Milton dramatic poems. So we are discussing Samson Agonistes. To conclude this module, we can say that Milton's works will showcase that he was a refined poet and an observant essayist with the ability to argue against the social injustice prevalent in society. Also, we can find that Milton was influenced by the Greek epic poet Homer. In this regard, we can quote Hazlitt and who says that had a great high standard which he was always comparing himself, nothing short of which could satisfy his jealous ambitions. Indeed, the timelessness of his works reinstates his unfathomable greatness. If we make a summary of this module, we will see that we have begun with an introduction and overview of the module, and the later sections on the prose upholds important prose works of Milton and style of his prose writings. Further section elaborates on Milton poetic style and important poetical works. And then we have discussed Milton sonnets and elaborated on those. And after then the next section was the Milton famous work Paradise Lost, and we have seen the book-wise summary of the work. Further, we have discussed Paradise Regained and Samson Agonistes. And here we come to an end of this module. Hope you have liked it. If you want to know more about John Milton and his works, please read the e-text. Also, you can have a look at the further reading section of this module. There will be book listed on this work, on his works, and you can know more about John Milton and his literary writings. Also, you can take part in the quiz section and know how you are learning about yourself, about the module. Thank you.